past, a lot of donor countries from Europe would try to persuade countries in Africa or Asia or Latin America that they should follow what's happening in Europe. But it wasn't relevant, it wasn't appropriate to them. So South-South learning is much more appropriate. So what countries are doing in Latin America can also inform what's happening in Africa, and you can learn lessons from there and apply them in Asia, or vice versa. Brazil is a very special case, and I don't think you can export those lessons to every country in Africa, especially the lower income countries, but certainly Brazil and South Africa can learn from each other, and maybe also India. So maybe the BRICS countries could learn from each other. A very good example is graduation programs, which started in Bangladesh, and now they've been exported to many other countries, and they are quite successful. But also I think we can learn from Brazil's experience, where they managed to reduce hunger and malnutrition very substantially in not a very long time, in a few years, by doing an integrated approach. And in other countries where we just have, for example, cash transfer programs, like in South Africa, we haven't got the same effect, the same results yet. Maybe we need to try that integrated approach that seems to have worked so well in Brazil. I think these kinds of forums are very, very valuable indeed. Often you have people at these meetings talking to each other, like government people from one country talking to government people at the same level in another country, and that starts the connections going. And those connections can then lead to study tours and exchange visits, and also exchanging information, and eventually to adopt those policies. But then you also have to convince politicians, and they're more concerned with costs. How much will it cost? Can they afford it? First is you have to show evidence that it works, right? So the first thing is to have very good research, impact evaluations, to prove that this is a good model, that it's going to work. And if you can convince them it's a good idea, then they will find the money. It's usually not a financial constraint, it's normally a political constraint. So first the evidence, then the political will, then comes the money. I think that Brazil, South Africa and India, they all share this approach of a rights-based approach to social protection and a rights-based approach to food security. So you have a law on social protection. So I think it's great that WFP is now very engaged in social protection. Because it's also focusing on the zero hunger objective, the social development goal, sustainable development goal of zero hunger. So that's a very important development. And the ultimate goal is social protection for all and zero hunger by 2030. So we must all keep moving towards that objective.